For as long as humans have existed, we've closed our eyes to the dark and surrendered to something we cannot fully explain. Sleep, that strange, necessary ritual that steals a third of our lives. We lay down each night, drift into another world, and trust that we will return. It's a quiet, almost sacred rhythm shared by every human who ever lived, from the cave dwellers who curled beside their fires to the kings who slept beneath gilded canopies. But what truly happens when we sleep? And why do we dream? Every culture, every age, has tried to answer this question. Some saw sleep as a journey of the soul, a nightly voyage into unseen realms. Others saw it as divine rest, a pause between the labors of the waking world. For ancient prophets, dreams were messages from the gods. For philosophers, they were puzzles of the mind. For scientists, they became data, neurons firing, systems resetting, memory stitching itself back together. Yet for all our progress, there remains a quiet mystery in the act of closing one's eyes and vanishing into another world. Tonight, we will wander through time, from the fires of the Stone Age to the modern age of sleep science, and explore how humans have understood and experienced the night. This is not just a history of rest. It is the story of our relationship with the darkness, with silence, with dreams, and with ourselves. So settle in. The world is quiet now. Let's travel back to where sleep began. Welcome to History for Sleep, where the past drifts softly into dreams. Do not forget to write out in the comments where you are listening from. I'd love to know in which places around the world I am helping people sleep even more soundly. Plus, if you like what I do here, subscribe now and let tomorrow's dream begin where this one ends. Chapter 1: The Dawn of Sleep, How Our Ancestors Slept. Before there were beds, before there were houses, there was the night, endless, vast, and alive with danger. To sleep, in those early millennia, was an act of faith. Imagine our ancestors, Homo sapiens and even earlier hominins, lying beneath the stars, wrapped in animal skins, listening to the crackle of fire. The air was filled with the sounds of predators, wolves, hyenas, and things unseen. Yet even in that peril, they slept. They had to. Sleep was survival. Without it, the body faltered, the mind unraveled, and reaction dulled. The tribe that did not rest would not last. Archaeological evidence gives us glimpses into these earliest nights. In South Africa's border cave, scientists found 200,000-year-old remains of grass bedding layered with ash, perhaps to repel insects. It was a primitive mattress made with care. Our ancestors were learning not only to rest, but to design sleep. Unlike us, early humans likely didn't sleep through the night in one continuous stretch. Anthropologists believe they practiced what's called segmented sleep, resting in 2 or more periods. The first phase began soon after sunset, lasting 4 or 5 hours. Then came a waking interval, a quiet hour in the darkness when people might tend the fire, speak softly, or simply watch the stars, followed by a second sleep that carried them until dawn. This pattern has been observed in many pre-industrial societies. Even as late as the 17th century, diaries and letters describe first sleep and second sleep as normal. The Industrial Revolution and artificial light changed that forever. The early human night was not silent. It was filled with small rituals of protection and meaning, a circle of fire, a chosen place to rest, a guard who stayed awake while others slept. And then there were dreams, those strange visions that came unbidden in the dark. Early humans didn't see them as random illusions of the brain. They were real. To dream was to travel, to meet ancestors, to receive omens, to speak with gods. We know this from cave art, like the swirling symbols of Lascaux and Chauvet, which some researchers believe depict visions seen in trance or dream states. These images blur the line between waking and dreaming consciousness. To ancient minds, both were parts of one vast reality. Dreams offered guidance. In many hunter-gatherer cultures, they still do. The Hadza of Tanzania, for instance, interpret dreams as messages from ancestors about hunting success or social balance. Among the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, the dreaming or dream time is not just night vision, but the sacred structure of existence itself, a timeless spiritual landscape that shaped the world. To sleep was to touch that realm. To dream was to walk through eternity. And so, even in the most primitive shelters, even when danger lurked beyond the flickering firelight, sleep became more than rest. It was communion, a nightly return to the mysteries of existence. Chapter 2: Sleep and the Divine, Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Ancient World. As civilization rose from the deserts and river valleys, sleep gained meaning, not just as a human necessity, but as a divine encounter. In ancient Egypt, sleep was sacred. The Egyptians believed that when one slept, the soul, left the body to travel through other realms. The dreaming mind became a vessel through which the gods could send messages. Temples across Egypt were built for dream incubation, a ritual practice where seekers slept in sacred spaces to receive divine visions. The Temple of Serapis in Alexandria and the Temple of Imhotep at Saqqara were among the most famous. Those who entered would purify themselves, offer prayers, and then lie down upon consecrated stone slabs. In their dreams, the gods might appear, offering healing, prophecy, or wisdom. Even pharaohs sought guidance from sleep. One of the most striking examples comes from Thutmose IV, who, before becoming king, slept near the Great Sphinx. In his dream, the Sphinx spoke to him, promising power if he would restore the monument buried in sand. Thutmose obeyed and rose to rule Egypt. His story was inscribed on the dream stele, still standing between the Sphinx's paws today. In Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, dreams were treated as direct channels to the divine. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest written works, records several prophetic dreams that guided heroes' fates. Priests known as Baru were trained to interpret these visions, reading symbols as messages from the gods Marduk, Ishtar, or Enlil. Dream interpretation manuals, the first of their kind, were written on clay tablets. One such text, found in the ruins of Nineveh, categorized dreams into good and bad, predicting outcomes from wealth to war. To dream of drinking wine, for example, was good fortune. To dream of drowning, a warning. To sleep was to step into a divine theater where the gods whispered through symbols and shadow. In Greece, this belief took on an even more human form. The god Asclepius, patron of healing, presided over temples known as Asclepia, where the sick would sleep in hopes of receiving a dream cure. They might awaken believing they had been touched by the god serpent, a sacred symbol of renewal, and many claimed miraculous recoveries. The Greeks, too, divided dreams into types. Artemidorus, a 2nd-century dream interpreter, wrote that some dreams were literal messages from the gods Theorica, while others reflected one's own thoughts or desires, enipnea. Aristotle and later philosophers began to wonder if dreams came not from gods at all, but from the workings of the human mind, a radical thought for its time. Meanwhile, in ancient India, The Upanishads described sleep as a journey through states of consciousness, from waking to dreaming to deep, dreamless peace, where the self merged with the eternal. In that stillness lay a hint of enlightenment. Across all these early civilizations, one truth echoed: sleep was never ordinary. It was sacred space, the bridge between the mortal and the divine, between this world and the next. Chapter 3: Dreams and Prophecies in the Classical World. By the time of classical Greece and Rome, dreams had become a language, one that philosophers, physicians, and priests all sought to translate. The ancient Greeks lived in a world alive with divine presence. Every wind, every illness, every birth was the result of some god's will. Sleep was no exception. The god Hypnos, with his soft wings, was the twin brother of Thanatos, death itself, a poetic truth that even in rest, humans flirted with eternity. In mythology, Hypnos lived in a cave near the river Lethe, where no sunlight entered and poppies grew in the shadows. His son Morpheus could shape dreams, taking on human form to speak to mortals as they slept. It was Morpheus who delivered the messages of the gods, veiled in symbols that could comfort or terrify. For the Greeks, dreams were never trivial. They were omens, clues to fate, sometimes warnings. The general Alexander the Great, before his conquest of Tyre, dreamt of a satyr dancing on his shield. His priests split the word satyr into satyros. Tyre is yours. The siege followed soon after. In Rome, emperors too took dreams seriously. The historian Suetonius records that Julius Caesar's wife dreamt of his murder the night before it happened, urging him to stay home from the Senate. He did not. Augustus, more cautious, would often act upon the counsel of his dreams, once sparing a man's life after seeing him weeping in sleep. But not all dreamers looked skyward for meaning. Some turned inward. Aristotle, writing in on dreams, proposed that dreams were reflections of the body and mind, vapors rising from digestion, images formed by the residual activity of the senses. He didn't deny that gods could speak through dreams, but he insisted most were simply the echo of one's waking life. It was the first rational, almost scientific approach to sleep in Western thought. And yet, in temples and cities alike, people still sought divine messages through slumber. Dream interpreters, oneirocritics, became fixtures of the classical world. The most famous was Artemidorus of Daldis, who, in the 2nd century, compiled a massive 5-volume encyclopedia called the Oneirocritica. He categorized dreams by symbols. To dream of the sea meant uncertainty, of flying, ambition or freedom, of teeth falling, the loss of kin or wealth. His book became a bedside manual for centuries, a map to the hidden logic of the unconscious long before Freud. The Romans, practical as always, added ritual to this fascination. Soldiers before battle would sleep on animal skins to summon prophetic dreams. Senators consulted interpreters before important votes. Even the sick turned to dreams for healing, sleeping in temples of Aesculapius, much as Greeks had done, hoping for divine prescriptions. For them, sleep was not idleness, it was communication, a space where the living and divine exchanged whispers in the dark. But as the classical age waned and the Christian world rose, the meaning of dreams began to change. The gods who once sent them vanished, replaced by a single god, and the devil waiting in shadow. The night took on a new tension. It could reveal truth or temptation. And so, as the old empires faded, the nature of dreaming shifted, from divine conversation to moral trial. Chapter 4: Medieval Nights, Sleep, Sin, and the Soul. The Middle Ages were an age of faith and of fear. The unseen world felt close, almost tangible. Angels and demons were thought to move among men, and the line between waking and dreaming blurred into something spiritual, even dangerous. For the Christian mind, sleep was both a blessing and a battleground. The Bible speaks often of dreams as divine tools. God warns Joseph of Herod's wrath in a dream, guides Jacob through visions, and speaks to prophets as they slumber. These stories gave dreams legitimacy, but also danger. For if God could speak through the night, so could darker forces. By the 6th century, theologians began dividing dreams into 3 kinds: divine, natural, and demonic. The divine were messages from heaven, guidance, prophecy, comfort. The natural came from the body or the imagination, the restless churnings of daily life. The demonic were traps designed to lead souls astray through fear or desire. This trinity of interpretation dominated Europe for nearly 1,000 years. Medieval scholars and monks recorded their dreams with the same gravity as visions. In 12th century France, Peter the Venerable, abbot of Cluny, wrote of being visited by departed brothers who begged him for prayers to ease their suffering in purgatory. Such dreams were seen as divine pleadings, proof of the afterlife's reach into the world of the living. For ordinary people, however, dreams were less theological and more moral. A sinful dream could bring guilt upon waking. Many manuals for confession warned believers not only to repent for deeds but also for thoughts, even those that came in sleep. The night was no longer just rest, it was a test of purity. In monasteries, the structure of sleep was sacred. Monks rose for prayer at set hours, dividing their rest between matins and lauds. The idea of a continuous 8-hour sleep would have been foreign to them. Sleep was devotion punctuated by vigilance, a rhythm inherited from the segmented sleep of older ages, but now sanctified by liturgy. Medieval households, too, practiced this rhythm. After first sleep, families might wake around midnight to pray, speak quietly, or even visit neighbors by candlelight before returning to bed. This watching hour was considered a time when the veil between worlds was thin, when visions might come. Dreams also entered literature, weaving morality and mysticism. In Dante's Divine Comedy, dreams mark turning points in his journey through hell and paradise, moments of transformation and revelation. The English poet William Langland, in Piers Plowman, casts his entire allegory as a single long dream, where visions reveal moral truths about society and the soul. But the darker side of the medieval night was fear, of nightmares, night terrors, and the supernatural beings believed to cause them. The mare, a malicious spirit in Germanic folklore, was thought to sit upon a sleeper's chest, suffocating them, the root of our modern word nightmare. Sleep paralysis, now understood as a neurological phenomenon, was once proof of demonic visitation. To ward off such terrors, people hung charms above their beds or prayed to saints for peaceful rest. The bed blessing of Saint Benedict, a common medieval prayer, asked God to banish the phantoms of the night, a reflection of the anxiety that the night held more than mere dreams. Yet not all medieval thought feared sleep. The mystics, figures like Hildegard of Bingen and Julian of Norwich, saw visions during trances and half-dreams that they interpreted as divine revelations. For them, to drift from consciousness was to open oneself to the voice of God. By the late Middle Ages, sleep itself became a metaphor for death, a temporary stillness before resurrection. Tomb inscriptions read, "He sleeps in peace." The phrase carried comfort. To sleep was to rest in God's keeping, awaiting the dawn of eternal life. Still, As centuries passed, Europe's relationship with the night began to change again. The invention of mechanical clocks, the spread of street lighting, and the hum of cities disrupted the ancient rhythm of segmented sleep. By the time of the Renaissance, the night was no longer purely sacred or feared. It was becoming a time of thought, and science, the study of sleep, was about to awaken. Chapter 5: The Enlightenment and the Science of Slumber. As Europe emerged from the shadows of the Middle Ages, the night itself began to change. Oil lamps flickered in the streets, clocks ticked steadily on the walls of homes and churches, and minds, long turned toward heaven, began to question the mechanics of the human body and the mysteries of the soul. The Enlightenment, that age of reason and revolution, turned its gaze on sleep. No longer would it be enough to say that dreams came from angels or demons. The thinkers of the 17th and 18th centuries wanted answers. Observable, rational, testable. Sleep, they argued, must be a physical process, something rooted not in spirits, but in nature itself. The transformation began quietly, in the study rooms of physicians and philosophers. One of the first to question the spiritual view of dreams was René Descartes, the French philosopher who famously declared, "I think, therefore I am." Descartes doubted everything, even his senses, but he noticed that in dreams, the mind could be tricked entirely. How then could one be sure of anything? His thoughts on dreams became a cornerstone of modern philosophy, blurring the line between waking and sleeping consciousness. Meanwhile, natural philosophers like Robert Hooke and Thomas Willis studied the brain itself. Willis, in the 1660s, wrote that sleep was not divine rest but the result of animal spirits, flows of energy within the brain, slowing down. Dreams, he suggested, were the imagination continuing to move while the senses slept. It was the first biological explanation of sleep ever written in English. Across Europe, physicians began to catalog sleep's effects on the body. They noticed that when people were deprived of rest, their judgment faltered, their bodies weakened, and their tempers changed. Sleep, it seemed, was not a luxury. It was essential. Still, the mystery of why we sleep remained. In the 18th century, Benjamin Franklin, ever the experimenter, wrote of his belief that fresh air and moderation improved sleep. He was among the first to link lifestyle and rest. In France, Jean-Jacques Rousseau romanticized sleep as a natural state corrupted by modern life, longing for the simple rest of humankind before cities and clocks. And while science grew, superstition didn't vanish entirely. The Enlightenment was not the end of the old world, but its transformation. Candlelight and curiosity coexisted with fear of the dark. People still told tales of night terrors and sleepwalkers, even as doctors began to record them as parasomnias, disorders, not demonic visits. The 18th century also saw the beginning of sleep hygiene, the idea that rest could be improved through order and cleanliness. Physicians recommended airing out bedrooms, sleeping on one's back, and avoiding indigestion of the mind before bed, what we'd now call stress. Yet even as sleep was measured, charted, and disciplined, dreams resisted full explanation. They still carried a hint of mystery, as if the rational mind could not bear to close its eyes completely. By the dawn of the 19th century, the stage was set for a new kind of exploration, one that would bridge philosophy and medicine, mystery and mechanism. Sleep was becoming science, but dreams were about to become psychology. Chapter 6: The Dreamers of the 19th Century, from Freud to the Modern Mind. The 19th century was an age of discovery, railways, telegraphs, electricity, and machines that bent nature to human will. Yet amid all this progress, one frontier remained profoundly human, the mind itself. The century opened with curiosity and unease about the hidden depths of the psyche. Sleep, trance, hypnosis, and dreams fascinated doctors and artists alike. They seemed to reveal a second world within, not supernatural, but subconscious. In France, Jean-Martin Charcot, a neurologist at the Salpêtrière Hospital in Paris, studied patients who fell into sudden trances and fits of sleep. He called it hysteria, but what he was really observing were disorders of the nervous system, precursors to what we'd later call narcolepsy and epilepsy. His work drew young students from across Europe, among them a quiet Austrian doctor named Sigmund Freud. Freud would change everything. When he published The Interpretation of Dreams in 1899, he proposed something revolutionary, that dreams were not messages from gods or random brain noise, but expressions of our unconscious mind, the hidden reservoir of thoughts, fears, and desires that the waking self represses. To Freud, dreams were the royal road to the unconscious. Every symbol, he believed, carried meaning, a key to buried emotion, a dream of climbing stairs, of flying, of losing teeth, all hinted at hidden conflicts or longings. Whether his specific interpretations hold up today or not, Freud's central insight reshaped how humanity saw itself. The night was no longer a divine realm or a medical curiosity. It was psychological terrain, a landscape of the self. Freud's theories ignited both fascination and controversy. Critics accused him of overemphasizing sexuality and ignoring culture, but his influence spread far beyond psychiatry. Artists, writers, and thinkers of the early 20th century, from surrealists like Salvador Dali to novelists like Franz Kafka, drew from Freud's vision of dreams as creative chaos. Even those who opposed him helped evolve the field. Carl Jung, once Freud's student, saw dreams not just as personal reflections but as connections to something deeper, what he called the collective unconscious. To Jung, recurring dream symbols, the mother, the shadow, the hero, were archetypes shared across humanity, shaped by myth and memory. Meanwhile, scientists continued to study sleep as a biological process. Marie-Jean-Pierre Fleurens and later Giuseppe Maruzzi explored the brainstem, discovering regions that controlled wakefulness and rest. By the century's end, the idea that sleep was merely the absence of activity had vanished. Instead, the brain in slumber was alive, different but active. The industrial age also changed how people slept. Electric light extended the day, factories demanded fixed schedules, and the old rhythm of segmented sleep faded into the modern 8-hour block. Sleep became another part of life to regulate, optimize, and measure. The Victorian home, filled with ticking clocks and moral order, made even bedtime a reflection of character. Early to bed, early to rise, the mark of discipline. Oversleeping was frowned upon, seen as laziness or indulgence. And yet, beneath all that order, dreamers still rebelled. Poets like Coleridge and Shelley, painters like William Blake, found inspiration in the half-light of sleep and vision. The Romantic movement turned dreams into art, proof that the unconscious was not only psychological but creative. By the end of the 19th century, humanity stood between two worlds. The night was still mysterious, but for the first time, we were beginning to measure it, to map its rhythms and dissect its meaning. The 20th century would finish what Freud and his contemporaries began, revealing the secret patterns of the sleeping brain. Chapter 7: The science of dreams, REM, brain waves, and modern sleep research. By the mid-20th century, humanity had done something extraordinary. We had entered the night with instruments. What was once mystery and myth was now being measured in volts, seconds, and cycles per second. In 1924, a German psychiatrist named Hans Berger made an accidental breakthrough. Trying to study telepathy, he invented the electroencephalograph, or EEG, a device that recorded the brain's electrical activity. What he found instead were waves, pulsing, rhythmic signals that rose and fell as people slept and woke. For the first time, scientists could see sleep. It was the beginning of a new era. Researchers discovered that the brain's electrical activity changed in stages, from slow, rolling waves of deep sleep to bursts of rapid, active patterns. By the 1950s, two American scientists, Eugene Aserinsky and Nathaniel Kleitman, working at the University of Chicago, noticed something startling. During certain phases of sleep, their subjects' eyes darted back and forth beneath closed lids. When they woke them, the sleepers almost always reported vivid dreams. Aserinsky and Kleitman had discovered REM sleep, rapid eye movement, the hidden world of dreaming within the night. Sleep, it turned out, was not a single state, but a cycle. A dance between REM and non-REM stages, repeating every 90 minutes through the night. In deep non-REM sleep, the body restored itself, tissue repaired, hormones released, energy replenished. In REM sleep, the mind wandered, integrating memory, emotion, and imagination. This discovery changed everything. For the first time, dreams were no longer purely psychological symbols or divine messages. They were biological, the brain's nocturnal theater, born of neurons firing across networks of memory and emotion. In the 1960s and 70s, scientists like Alan Rechtschaffen and William Dement began mapping sleep architecture. Dement coined the phrase dream debt, warning that lack of sleep could impair judgment, mood, and even immune function. Sleep was not rest from life. It was a foundation for it. At the same time, dream research flourished. Experiments showed that REM deprivation caused anxiety, irritability, and even hallucinations. The sleeping mind, it seemed, needed to dream, not for prophecy or pleasure, but for sanity. Yet the meaning of dreams still invited wonder. Calvin Hall collected over 50,000 dream reports, finding that dreams reflected ordinary life more than fantasy. People walked, talked, worked, but emotions were heightened, unfiltered. The brain, stripped of the external world, turned inward. In the late 20th century, neurobiologists proposed the activation synthesis theory, that dreams were the brain's attempt to make sense of random electrical signals. The mind, in darkness, created stories to give chaos form. Others disagreed. The cognitive school argued that dreams were part of memory processing, the way the brain filed away the day's experiences. Modern imaging later confirmed this. During REM, the amygdala, responsible for emotion, flared with activity, while the logical prefrontal cortex dimmed. Dreams were emotional truth, not literal logic. Technology deepened the mystery. MRI scans revealed the dreaming brain glowing like a galaxy, regions linked to vision and creativity alive while the world slept. What humanity once called divine visitation was now seen as neural poetry. By the late 20th century, entire sleep laboratories existed around the world. Scientists studied insomnia, sleep apnea, narcolepsy, and the elusive lucid dream, the moment when the dreamer becomes aware they are dreaming. And so, after thousands of years of myth, religion, and reflection, humans had finally begun to understand the architecture of the night, not to demystify it, but to appreciate how deeply it shaped us. We learned that sleep affects memory, immunity, aging, and emotion, that to deprive a person of dreams is to unweave their peace. And yet, even with electrodes and data, something ineffable remained. We could see the waves, but the meaning, that intimate theater of thought and feeling, still belonged to mystery. Chapter 8. Sleep in the Digital Age, Light, Screens, and the Restless Mind. As the 20th century closed, the night changed again, perhaps more radically than in any era before. For thousands of years, darkness ruled half of every day. But in the modern world, darkness has been exiled. Streets gleam, screens glow. Cities hum through midnight as if dawn never ends. The stars themselves are drowned in light. We are the first civilization in history to live in a world without true night. Artificial light, first gas lamps, then electricity, and now digital screens, has transformed the human relationship with sleep. Circadian rhythm, that ancient clock within us, is guided by light. The hormone melatonin, which signals the body to rest, begins to rise with dusk. But under the glare of blue LEDs and smartphones, the body no longer knows when night has come. We fall asleep later, wake groggier, and spend less time in the deep stages that heal us. In a way, humanity has become a species permanently jet-lagged by its own inventions. Technology has also changed the meaning of sleep. In the modern world, time is productivity, and sleep, once sacred, is often treated as weakness. The 24-hour economy celebrates the sleepless, the entrepreneur, the trader, the late-night coder. You can sleep when you're dead, the saying goes. But science now knows the opposite is true. Without sleep, the body begins to die piece by piece. Chronic sleep deprivation has been linked to heart disease, depression, obesity, and cognitive decline. Even mild lack of rest impairs memory and empathy, dulling not only intelligence, but humanity itself. Sleep is not lost time. It is the quiet engine of life. Still, the digital age has not only stolen sleep, it has reinvented it. Apps track our cycles. Smartwatches monitor REM phases. Headphones whisper gentle waves and guided meditations. We have turned the ancient mystery of rest into data, and in some cases back into ritual. Ironically, our obsession with tracking sleep has made us more aware of how fragile it is. The constant glow of devices, the endless stream of information, the anxiety of connection, all make rest elusive. Many now seek what ancient cultures once practiced naturally: preparation for sleep as ceremony. Modern wellness trends, meditation, aromatherapy, slow music, breath, are echoes of ancient rites from Egypt, Greece, and India. The circle completes itself. What science defines in charts, history once expressed in prayer. And dreams? They have adapted too. The modern dreamer carries technology even into sleep. Studies show that people now dream of screens, phones that won't work, emails they cannot send, endless scrolls. Our subconscious, always faithful, reflects our world back to us, no matter how artificial it becomes. But there is also a quiet hope. For all our distractions, humanity still longs for peace in the night. Sleep podcasts, calming narrations, and slow TV bring storytelling back to where it began. A voice in the dark, a tale to fall asleep to. We have come full circle, back to the firelight of our ancestors, listening to stories as the mind drifts between worlds. In the end, the digital age has not destroyed sleep. It has reminded us how precious it is. In a world that never stops glowing, sleep is our last sanctuary of darkness, our shared reminder that rest is not the enemy of progress, but its source. Chapter 9. The Future of Sleep, AI, Space, and the Human Brain. For most of human history, sleep belonged to the dark. But as we step into the age of technology, artificial intelligence, and interplanetary travel, the question arises: what becomes of sleep in a world that no longer dreams beneath the stars? Today, science can chart the night with astonishing precision. We can map brain waves, measure heart rhythms, and monitor breathing in real time. Smartwatches whisper our pulse as we sleep. Neural headbands sense the shifting tides of our consciousness. And beyond measurement lies ambition: to understand, enhance, even control the sleeping mind. At research centers in Boston, Tokyo, and Zurich, scientists study the possibility of targeted dream modulation, using sound or light cues to guide dream content. The goal, they say, is to use dreams to strengthen memory, treat trauma, or inspire creativity. Imagine a world where nightmares are softened, where lost memories are gently replayed until they heal, where learning continues even in slumber. It sounds miraculous, and perhaps unsettling. For the first time in history, we are not only observing dreams, we are beginning to design them. Neuroscientists have also found that sleep is far more than rest. It is essential maintenance for the brain. During deep sleep, a system called the glymphatic network flushes toxins from neural tissue, clearing waste products like beta amyloid, the same compound linked to Alzheimer's disease. Without sufficient sleep, the mind literally clogs itself. In the future, this discovery could reshape how we treat mental illness, aging, and memory decline. But the frontier of sleep stretches even farther, beyond Earth itself. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station orbit the planet every 90 minutes, watching the sun rise and set 16 times a day. Their circadian rhythms are thrown into chaos. To survive in space, scientists have had to reinvent sleep, using timed lighting, sedative schedules, and even simulated gravity to maintain rest. When humanity journeys farther, to the moon, to Mars, perhaps beyond, the challenge of sleep will follow. In a world with longer days or endless nights, will our internal clocks adapt? Will we still dream as we do under Earth's sky? Some researchers suggest that in the future, sleep might even be induced or suspended through controlled hypothermia or metabolic slowdown for long space voyages, a return to the ancient myth of hibernation, now rendered scientific. In that deep engineered sleep, what becomes of dreaming? Do travelers between stars dream of Earth? Artificial intelligence, too, has entered the conversation. In laboratories, algorithms now analyze patterns of REM and neural firing to reconstruct images from dreams, faint outlines, colors, and shapes glimpsed from brain data. It's imperfect, almost poetic, machines catching flickers of the human subconscious. One day, we may be able to record our dreams, to watch them upon waking. What would that mean for privacy, for art, for memory? Would we still trust our minds to keep their secrets? And yet, for all our technology, the essential mystery remains. Why must we sleep at all? Even now, science cannot fully answer. Every creature that has ever lived, from the whale that sleeps half a brain at a time, to the bird that dreams mid-flight, must surrender to rest. Sleep is not a flaw of evolution. It is a masterpiece. Perhaps it will always remain partly beyond our grasp, the place where data ends and wonder begins. Chapter 10. Epilogue. the eternal night. We have traveled far, from the fires of the Stone Age to the glow of screens, from temple dreams to REM scans, and yet, in every era, one truth endures: to sleep is to trust the world enough to let it go. Close your eyes, and for a moment, imagine the unbroken chain of sleepers that connects you to the past. The hunter curled beneath the stars, the scribe nodding off beside his candle, the monk in his cell whispering a prayer before first sleep, the child in a city apartment, light from the street painting gold on the ceiling. All of them, resting, dreaming, renewing, so that life could continue. Sleep has been called many things: a small death, a mirror of eternity, the great equalizer. It has inspired gods and guided empires, comforted the lonely, healed the wounded, and carried the human mind into worlds of imagination. It is our oldest companion and our most faithful. In every age we have tried to explain it, to measure, to moralize, to master it. But sleep resists mastery. It is the one time of day that still belongs entirely to ourselves, even when we share it with millions. Within it, we return to something wordless, a silence older than language, deeper than thought. Science will continue to probe it. Machines will map its pulses, and algorithms will chart its dreams. But none of these will replace the simple, ancient truth: each night we vanish and are born anew. Perhaps that is the secret reason sleep feels sacred. It reminds us that life too is cyclical, waking and resting, striving and yielding, birth and death. Sleep is not the opposite of living, it is its rhythm. And dreams, those strange flickering stories that visit us when all else fades, are proof that even in stillness the mind creates. They are the soul's quiet way of reminding us that we are alive. So when you close your eyes tonight, know that you are continuing a history older than words, a history written not in books or stone, but in breath and heartbeat, the story of how humanity learned to rest beneath the turning sky. And somewhere, far in the future, on another world, under another sun, someone will close their eyes, drift into sleep, and dream of Earth. The night continues, and so do we. Part 2, The Dreaming Mind: How Dreams Shape History, Art, and Belief. Every night, when the lights go out and the world fades from sight, a new stage opens inside the mind. It is a theater without audience or boundary, where memory, desire, and imagination perform in perfect secrecy. This is the realm of dreams, and it has shaped human history as powerfully as any king, religion, or war. Dreams have started revolutions, birthed symphonies, inspired inventions, and kindled faith. They have sent prophets wandering, artists painting, and philosophers questioning what it means to be awake at all. From the ancient temples of Egypt to the studios of modern surrealists, dreams have been our deepest mirror, reflecting what we fear, what we hope, and what we cannot say aloud. They are older than language, yet never stop evolving. Even now, in the digital age, the mind continues to dream in symbols older than civilization itself. Tonight, we'll explore how those private visions have shaped public worlds, how dreams became religion, prophecy, and art. This is not the story of how we dream, but what those dreams have done to us. Chapter 1: The Dream as Message, Prophecy, and Power in the Ancient World. Long before science, before philosophy or medicine, dreams were not thoughts. They were messages. For the earliest civilizations, the dreamer was a messenger, a chosen intermediary between the human and the divine. Dreams came not from within but from above. In ancient Mesopotamia, Clay tablets from nearly 4,000 years ago record royal dreams in cuneiform script. Kings believed the gods spoke through sleep. The Babylonian king Gudea of Lagash, for instance, described a dream in which a towering figure ordered him to build a temple, complete with blueprints shown in the vision. He obeyed, and the temple rose in reality. In those times, to dream was not imagination. It was duty. Egyptian pharaohs, too, listened to their dreams as commands from gods. The story of Thutmose IV sleeping near the great Sphinx and dreaming of his destiny is one of the earliest royal testaments of prophecy through sleep. When he awoke, he found his fate inscribed in stone. Dreams also governed law and justice. In Assyria, priests known as Baru specialized in dream interpretation, consulting vast catalogs of symbols. One tablet reads, "If a man dreams of eating lion's flesh, he shall be powerful among his peers. If he dreams of falling from a wall, his end is near." Such texts were both superstition and system, the first manuals of the unconscious mind. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks refined this into ritual. In the Asclepian temples, worshippers would undergo purification before lying down to sleep, awaiting divine healing through dreams. The physician Galen claimed to have received surgical instructions in a dream, which he followed successfully. For centuries, these incubation dreams were a form of therapy, merging medicine, faith, and psychology long before those words existed. But not all dreamed alike. In every ancient society, the dream of a ruler was sacred, the dream of a commoner, suspect. A king's dream could change the fate of nations. The Assyrian ruler Ashurbanipal claimed the gods sent him dreams revealing his enemies' secrets. Centuries later, the Roman Emperor Constantine saw a vision of a cross in the sky with the words, "In this sign, conquer." He marched under that symbol, and Christianity would rise from empire to religion. Dreams, in their silence, moved history more than battles. Even in the Bible, dreams steer the narrative of faith. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's vision of famine. Jacob dreams of a ladder to heaven. Daniel deciphers the nightmares of kings. Dreams were the language of divine will, and dreamers, the interpreters of destiny. In the Islamic world, centuries later, the Prophet Muhammad would speak of true dreams, ruya, saying they were 1/46th part of prophecy. Many early scholars of Islam considered dreams a form of revelation that continued even after prophecy ended. In every ancient civilization, sleep was not private. The dream was public, political, spiritual, and cosmic. It was how humanity spoke to the gods, and sometimes how the gods spoke back. Chapter 2. Dreams of the Sacred, Religion and Revelation. If Chapter 1 was about kings and power, this is about faith and meaning. For religion, dreams have always been both bridge and proof, the invisible thread between the mortal and the eternal. In the Hebrew and Christian traditions, dreams are woven into the fabric of Scripture. Joseph, warned in a dream to flee with Mary and the infant Jesus. Pilate's wife, tormented by a dream, begged her husband not to condemn Christ. Prophets, saints, and martyrs were guided or tested through visions at night. In the Middle Ages, monks recorded dreams of the Virgin Mary, of angels, of journeys through purgatory, visions that shaped Christian imagination for centuries. The 12th century monk Adam of Ancient wrote a detailed account of a soul's dreamlike passage through heaven and hell, a precursor to the Divine Comedy. For believers, dreams were not symbols, they were revelation. In Islamic mysticism, dreams are not metaphor but experience. The Prophet's own night journey, the Isra and Miraj, is often described as a vision between wakefulness and sleep in which he ascended through the seven heavens to the throne of God. From this foundation grew a deep Islamic dream tradition. Scholars collected dream dictionaries, much like the Assyrians, yet their purpose was moral and spiritual. A good dream could affirm one's faith, a bad one warned of spiritual danger. Sufi mystics saw dreams as steps toward union with the divine. Ibn Arabi, the great Andalusian philosopher, wrote that through dreams, the spirit is freed from the body's prison and witnesses the unseen. For Sufis, to dream was to travel, not across land, but across the boundaries of the soul. In the East, Buddhist and Hindu thought viewed dreams through a different lens. They were not messages from gods, but illusions, reflections of the same impermanence that defines waking life. The Upanishads described the dream state svapna as one of four conditions of the self: waking, dreaming, deep sleep, and transcendence. The highest state, turiya, was beyond all dreams, pure awareness. For the Tibetan Buddhists, dreams became a path of mastery. Through dream yoga, practitioners learned to become lucid within sleep, recognizing the dream as a dream, a rehearsal for enlightenment and for death. To awaken inside a dream was to glimpse the true nature of reality, fluid, luminous, ungraspable. Even in ancient China, philosophy turned the dream inward. The Taoist sage Zhuangzi famously wrote, "Once, I dreamt I was a butterfly. Now I do not know whether I was Zhuangzi dreaming I was a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I am Zhuangzi." It was not just a parable. It was a question that still lingers across centuries. Where does waking end and dreaming begin? In all these traditions, Hebrew, Christian, Islamic, Hindu, Buddhist, Taoist, dreams were the boundary where the visible world met the invisible one. For some, they revealed divine will. For others, they revealed the illusion of will itself. And though the explanations differed, the reverence was the same. Across temples, mosques, monasteries, and mountains, people still closed their eyes each night hoping to touch something larger than themselves, to see what cannot be seen in daylight. Chapter 3: Dreams of Kings and Empires, Visions that Changed the World. Power has always listened to dreams. When empires were still fragile, when battles were decided by omens rather than strategy, a single vision could change the fate of nations. The dream was the most personal of all divine messages, and for rulers, the most dangerous. To claim a dream was to claim legitimacy, but to misread one could destroy a dynasty. In ancient Persia, the prophet Zoroaster described dreams as glimpses into the war between light and darkness, a cosmic struggle reflected in the mind of every leader. When the great king Darius I took power, he justified his rule through a dream. He claimed the god Ahura Mazda had chosen him, giving his authority divine approval. In those times, a dream could crown a king. Centuries later in Babylon, the Neo-Babylonian ruler Nabonidus dreamed that the moon god Sin commanded him to rebuild temples. He did so faithfully, but his obsession with divine visions isolated him from his court and people. The empire collapsed soon after, falling to Cyrus the Great. Even dreams could betray their dreamers. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks wove dreams into their politics. Before the Battle of Salamis, the Athenian leader Themistocles dreamt that a serpent, symbol of Athena, slithered across his body and transformed into a woman who whispered victory. When the Persians were defeated, Themistocles offered sacrifices to thank the goddess who had visited him in sleep. The Romans continued this tradition. When Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he claimed to have dreamt of embracing his mother, a sign, his interpreters said, that he would return to the mother of all, Rome. But not all omens were kind. His wife Calpurnia's nightmare of his assassination went unheeded, and history unfolded as foretold, even in the height of empire. Reason bent before the power of dream. In Asia, the pattern repeated. In China, emperors consulted dream readers as part of their daily council. The Book of Dreams, Zhugong attributed to the Duke of Zhou around 1000 BCE, became the Chinese world's definitive dream manual, a compendium linking every possible image to moral and political consequence. To dream of dragons foretold imperial favor. To dream of falling warned of rebellion. The Emperor Wu of Han once dreamt of a golden man walking among the stars. His priests told him it was a sign from the western heaven, a prophecy fulfilled decades later with the arrival of Buddhist emissaries from India. A single dream helped open the Silk Road to religion. Far to the west, Islam's rise too was guided by visions. Before the Battle of Badr, the Prophet Muhammad dreamt of his small army as twice its size, a revelation that gave courage against overwhelming odds. Early Muslim rulers, caliphs, and saints often recorded dreams that shaped law, politics, and philosophy, each dream a fragment of divine order. Even in the modern era, long after religion had receded from the throne, rulers still dreamed of destiny. Abraham Lincoln, days before his assassination, dreamt of walking through the White House toward a coffin surrounded by soldiers. He told his wife and aides of the vision, half jokingly, yet the image haunted them after his death. History, in its grandeur and violence, is not made only by waking will. It is shaped, in part, by what leaders see behind closed eyes, by whispers that come when the world grows still. For every monument, every war, every reform, there may have been, somewhere in the background, a dream. Chapter 4. Artists of the Night, Painters, Poets, and the Dream World of Art. If kings used dreams to command the world, artists used them to understand it. Where rulers saw prophecy, the artist saw poetry. Across centuries, creativity and dreaming have been twins, born from the same strange light within the mind. The link between art and dream begins with the oldest images ever made. Deep in the caves of Lascaux and Chauvet, painted 30,000 years ago, the flicker of torchlight animates bulls, horses, and half-human figures that seem to move in trance. Anthropologists believe these were not mere decorations, they were visions. The artists may have entered altered states, dreamlike or shamanic, bringing back images from a realm between sleep and spirit. As civilizations rose, that dream art connection only grew stronger. In ancient Greece, poets invoked Morpheus, god of dreams, as the patron of creativity. The philosopher Plato wrote that the best poets create not in reason, but in frenzy, a divine madness akin to dreaming. Centuries later, during the Renaissance, artists like Leonardo da Vinci filled notebooks with strange, half-dreamt machines, winged creatures, and impossible perspectives. Leonardo himself wrote, "The mind works more freely at night, when the senses rest and reason sleeps." But it was the romantics of the 18th and 19th centuries who made dreaming their religion. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, in a feverish sleep, dreamt the lines of Kubla Khan, a poem of palaces, rivers, and paradise, only to awaken and find the vision vanishing as he wrote. William Blake painted angels he swore he had seen as a child. His art blurred waking and dream so completely that critics called him mad. He simply replied, "I see not with the eyes, but through them." In music, dreams composed masterpieces. Giuseppe Tartini claimed that the devil appeared in his sleep and played a violin sonata so haunting that he tried to recreate it upon waking. The devil's trill sonata still echoes with otherworldly precision. Beethoven, in the final years of his life, heard melodies in dreams long after his ears had failed. Then came the 20th century, and dreams conquered art completely. The Surrealists, led by André Breton, made the unconscious their canvas. They followed Freud's vision of dreams as keys to the hidden self, and sought to paint or write the logic of the sleeping mind. Salvador Dali perfected the paranoiac critical method, drifting between sleep and waking to catch the exact moment when dreams turned to reality. His melted clocks and the persistence of memory were not symbols of time. They were the texture of dreaming itself. Writers, too, mined their dreams for stories. Mary Shelley dreamt of a scientist kneeling beside the creature he had created and awoke to write Frankenstein. Robert Louis Stevenson dreamt of a respectable man turning into a monster and wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The boundary between nightmare and creation vanished. In modern times, filmmakers carried this lineage forward. Ingmar Bergman, David Lynch, Akira Kurosawa, each building entire worlds that feel like lucid dreams. They remind us that art, at its highest, is a controlled dream the audience willingly enters. Science has since confirmed what poets always knew. Dreaming enhances creativity. In REM sleep, the brain's association centers fire freely, allowing connections impossible in wakefulness. Musicians, scientists, and inventors alike report breakthroughs upon waking from strange dreams. From Elias Howe's invention of the sewing machine, inspired by a dream of spears with holes in their tips, to Paul McCartney's composition of Yesterday, which came to him fully formed in sleep. In every century, the dreamer has been both artist and scientist, creating from the unknown. Perhaps that is what makes dreams the purest form of art. They are imaginations untouched by doubt, stories painted in private, fading before they can be judged. And so, when we admire a painting, read a poem, or listen to a melody that seems to come from beyond reason, we are really glimpsing another person's dream, translated into form before it disappeared. Chapter 5. Nightmares and Shadows. The Fear Within Dreams. Not all dreams are kind. For every vision of paradise or inspiration, there is another world, darker, heavier, filled with shadows that feel too real. Nightmares are the undercurrent of dreaming, reminders that the mind, even in rest, cannot escape itself. Fear, in dreams, is as old as dreaming itself. In the earliest mythologies, nightmares were not emotions, but entities. The ancient Greeks called them ephialtes, meaning the one who leaps upon. To them, a nightmare was a literal attack, a dark spirit pressing upon the sleeper's chest. The Romans gave the terror a name that still lingers: incubus, the night demon that visited in the dark hours, suffocating its victims. The female form, succubus, tempted the sleeping into sin. What we now call sleep paralysis, the moment when the body is frozen but the mind is awake, was once proof of demons, witches, or wandering souls. Across Europe, from Scandinavia to Sicily, folklore personified the experience in chilling forms: the mare, the old hag, the press, each sitting on the chest of the helpless dreamer. The German word Albtraum, elf dream, preserves that belief even today. In medieval Christianity, nightmares took on moral weight. They were not merely disturbances of sleep, but warnings of temptation, sin, or divine punishment. The sinner might dream of flames or serpents, the pious of angels and light. Monks recorded dreams of devils whispering blasphemies or of falling endlessly into darkness. These were not random visions. They were seen as battles for the soul. In other cultures, nightmares were signs of imbalance. In China, traditional medicine linked disturbing dreams to the heart and liver, the seat of emotions. In Japan, the term kanashibari describes both the paralysis and the haunting, a spirit binding the body. In West African traditions, some believed that the soul could wander during sleep, and nightmares came when it was attacked or lost. Science would eventually strip these terrors of demons, but not of mystery. By the 19th century, as psychology emerged, nightmares were seen as reflections of the subconscious. Sigmund Freud believed they revealed suppressed anxieties, the return of repressed conflict. Carl Jung saw them as messages from the deeper self, the shadow, the unacknowledged part of personality demanding to be seen. Modern neuroscience has confirmed that nightmares often arise from overactive emotion centers, particularly the amygdala, replaying distress without the rational filters of wakefulness. Yet the function of nightmares may not be punishment, but practice. Studies show that people who experience frightening dreams often react more calmly to real-life danger. The mind rehearses fear in the safety of illusion, a nightly simulation of survival. Still, nightmares can wound. For soldiers, trauma survivors, and children alike, the boundary between dream and memory can blur into torment. Therapies now exist that rewrite dreams, using visualization, mindfulness, or even gentle REM manipulation to replace terror with peace. In a sense, we are learning to heal the ancient demons through understanding rather than exorcism. And yet, there remains something profound about the nightmare's endurance. It reminds us that the mind is not a tame garden but a wilderness, that even when we close our eyes, we carry storms within. To dream of falling, of being chased, of losing one's voice, these are not curses but signals from our deeper selves, reminders of the fears we hide by day. When light returns, the nightmare dissolves, leaving a strange calm behind. Perhaps that is its quiet gift, that after descending into darkness, we awake grateful for the dawn. Chapter 6: Lucid Dreamers, the Quest to Control the Night. Among all dreamers, there are a few who learn to wake within the dream. They are called lucid dreamers, travelers in their own imagination, aware that they are dreaming and sometimes able to shape what unfolds. For centuries, lucid dreaming was seen as mystical. Ancient Hindu texts referred to swapna samadhi, the conscious sleep, a state of awareness within dreams practiced by yogis. Tibetan Buddhism perfected this as dream yoga, where monks trained to recognize illusions even in sleep, dissolving fear and desire until only pure awareness remained. To awaken within a dream was not fantasy, it was enlightenment. In the West, lucid dreaming entered recorded history in the writings of Aristotle, who noted, often when one is asleep, there is something in consciousness which declares that what presents itself is but a dream. Later, in the 17th century, a Dutch physician, Frederick van Eden, coined the term lucid dream after keeping detailed journals of his nocturnal experiments. He described flying over cities, conversing with the dead, and even asking dream figures questions, an explorer mapping the inner cosmos. But only in the 20th century did science begin to confirm what mystics had long known. In 1975, British psychologist Keith Hearn devised an ingenious experiment. He trained a lucid dreamer to move his eyes in a specific pattern upon realizing he was dreaming. The eye movements were recorded on a machine, the first real-time signal from within a dream. Years later, American researcher Stephen LaBerge expanded this work at Stanford University, proving through EEG that lucid dreamers exhibited unique brain activity, bridging REM sleep and conscious control. For the first time, the dream world was proven to be navigable, a landscape of mind where awareness could survive. Lucid dreamers describe extraordinary freedom. They fly, converse with loved ones lost, explore imagined worlds. Yet the most profound experiences are often simple. Walking through moonlit fields, touching the air, realizing that everything, light, sound, sensation, is made by one's own mind. It is the purest experience of creation. Some use lucid dreaming for art. Painters sketch what they see in dreams. Writers recall entire plots. Musicians wake with melodies. Others use it for healing, confronting fears, speaking to figures that represent grief or guilt. Lucidity turns the nightmare into dialogue. But lucidity is fragile. The moment one becomes too aware, the dream collapses like glass touched by sunlight. The paradox of lucid dreaming is that it requires balance, awareness without awakening, control without effort. Scientists now know that lucid dreamers exhibit increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region linked to self-awareness. They are, in a literal sense, half awake. Some researchers suggest that training this state may improve problem-solving, creativity, even emotional resilience. Still, the practice remains elusive. Few can summon lucidity at will. It comes unexpectedly, like an epiphany, a sudden realization that the impossible is happening. The dreamer looks around and thinks, "This is my mind." In that moment, the boundaries of reality dissolve. Time stretches, landscapes shift, identities blend. The dreamer becomes both author and witness. And when morning comes, the memory fades, but the feeling lingers, a gentle awe at how vast the inner world can be. Perhaps lucid dreaming is humanity's oldest wish, not to escape the dream, but to awaken within it. To be both asleep and aware, both mortal and infinite. It is the echo of an ancient truth, that the dream, like life itself, is real precisely because it is fleeting. Chapter 7. The Collective Dream, Myths, Archetypes, and the Shared Unconscious. Every human dreams alone. And yet, throughout history, our dreams have often been the same. The faces, symbols, and stories that haunt one sleeper reappear across continents and centuries. The same serpent, the same storm, the same flight through impossible skies. It is as though, beneath the surface of billions of private minds, a deeper sea connects us all. This idea, that dreams reveal not only the individual but the human collective, found its clearest voice in the psychologist Carl Jung. Where Freud saw dreams as personal puzzles, Jung saw them as myth. He believed that the human mind inherited a deep layer of memory called the collective unconscious, a reservoir of shared images and instincts. Within it lived the archetypes, universal figures that appeared in every culture's dreams and stories. The mother, the hero, the shadow, the wise old man, the trickster. Jung spent decades collecting dream reports from patients and cultures across the world. He was struck by how ancient symbols reappeared in modern sleep, snakes shedding skin, representing rebirth, journeys through tunnels, symbolizing initiation, battles with monsters mirroring the struggle against fear. He realized that humanity dreams in mythic language, a pattern older than civilization. Yet the notion of shared dreaming predates Jung by millennia. Ancient peoples already knew that dreams could belong to tribes, not just individuals. The Iroquois held communal dream to sharing ceremonies each morning. believing that unspoken dreams affected the health of the entire community. Among the Australian Aboriginals, the dreaming, or dream time, is not a sleep state but the cosmic origin of existence, an eternal story through which reality continues to unfold. The dream, in this sense, is not private imagination. It is the fabric of the world. In Africa, many cultures still hold dreams to be ancestral communication. A vision seen by one is guidance for all. In Polynesian belief, the dream soul travels across oceans to meet others, a journey of spirit as real as any voyage by canoe. Even in modern societies, fragments of collective dreaming persist. Mass movements and revolutions are often born from shared visions, utopias glimpsed in the mind before they exist in the world. Nations themselves are dreams that people agree to believe in together. Psychologists today find surprising evidence of dream patterns that cross geography. Studies show that people in vastly different cultures report similar dream motifs: being chased, flying, falling, losing teeth, standing before an unseen audience. Such images are not taught. They emerge from biology, memory, and emotion shared by all humans. It is tempting to think that dreams speak a private language, but perhaps they are a dialect of something older, the universal mind of the species. Even technology now hints at collective dreaming. The internet, humanity's nervous system, has become a literal web of dreams shared daily in stories, videos, and art. We narrate our visions to strangers across the planet, each adding to the great archive of imagination. What once belonged to temples and firelight now spreads in digital silence. The collective dream has not ended. It has gone online, but its essence remains the same. When we dream of falling, of searching, of loving, of losing, we are echoing the same emotional myths carved into human memory. The dream connects us backward to our ancestors, sideways to strangers, and inward to the parts of ourselves that still speak in symbols. In that sense, all of humanity is one dream, sleeping and waking in cycles across time. Chapter 8: Dreams of Innovation: How Sleep Fuels Discovery. If dreams shape myths and art, they also shape invention. The same restless imagination that paints visions of gods and monsters can also solve equations, compose melodies, and design machines. History is filled with discoveries that arrived not through reason, but through rest. In the early 19th century, the German chemist Friedrich August Kekulé struggled to understand the structure benzene, a puzzle that defied logic. One evening, half asleep by the fire, he dreamt of atoms forming and reforming, until one chain curled into a serpent that swallowed its tail, the ancient symbol of the Ouroboros. He awoke with a revelation. The benzene molecule was ring-shaped. A dream had given chemistry its key. A century earlier, another dream had birthed a scientific revolution. Dmitri Mendeleev, after long days organizing chemical elements, fell asleep at his desk and dreamt of them falling into place like pieces of a game. He woke, wrote quickly, and the periodic table was born. In the realm of invention, Elias Howe dreamt of being attacked by spears with holes in their tips, and realized the missing design for his sewing machine needle. Niels Bohr, father of quantum theory, saw in a dream an image of electrons circling a nucleus like planets around the sun, and awoke with the model that redefined atomic science. Even the music of the world's great composers owes much to the sleeping mind. Paul McCartney famously awoke with the melody of yesterday already complete in his head. Giuseppe Tartini, as mentioned earlier, claimed his violin sonata was taught to him by the devil in a dream, and the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Kubla Khan that dream of caverns measureless to man, stands as a monument to the fleeting brilliance of sleep. Modern neuroscience confirms what these dreamers intuited. During sleep, particularly REM, the brain becomes a network of creative chaos. Areas responsible for logic and inhibition quiet down, while those tied to emotion, memory, and association ignite. The result is a mind freed from linear thought, a crucible where new ideas can form. Innovation, then, is not simply the product of waking effort. It is the collaboration between two minds, the conscious and the dreaming. Work lays the groundwork, sleep assembles the pattern. Even in our age of constant stimulation, dream-inspired invention continues. Engineers report solving coding problems after naps. Artists wake with entire storyboards in their heads, and scientists now use targeted memory reactivation, playing soft cues during sleep, to enhance problem solving. The laboratory has caught up with the poet, but there is a gentler lesson hidden here. Creativity cannot be forced awake. It must be invited, patiently, like a dream. The same rhythm that guides our breathing, our pulse, our sleep cycles, also guides inspiration. Rest is not the opposite of work. It is its hidden partner. When we close our eyes, the world does not stop. It reorganizes itself. The mind becomes both architect and dreamer, builder and sleeper. In those hours of surrender, humanity has discovered chemistry, art, mathematics, and music, all born not from struggle, but from silence. Perhaps the greatest inventions of all, empathy, imagination, the ability to dream of a better world, are themselves gifts of sleep. For what is progress, if not a shared dream made real? Chapter 9, The Dream and the Soul, Death, Rebirth, and the Eternal Sleep. From the beginning, humans have felt that sleep is a rehearsal for something larger. Every night we vanish into stillness, and every morning we awaken renewed. It is little wonder that for most of history, sleep and death have been twins, sacred mirrors of the same mystery. In ancient Egypt, this connection was woven into religion itself. To the Egyptians, death was not an ending but a journey through the night. The Book of the Dead was a map for that passage, guiding the soul through darkness towards sunrise in the next world. The sleeping body, lying motionless with closed eyes, mirrored the mummy in its sarcophagus, waiting for dawn. The Greeks personified this bond in their mythology. Hypnos, god of sleep, and Thanatos, god of death, were brothers. One brought temporary rest, the other eternal. When the warrior Sarpedon fell in battle, Homer wrote that sleep and death lifted him gently from the field, side by side. Even in war there was tenderness. Throughout the Abrahamic faiths, the language of death borrowed from the language of sleep. The Hebrew scriptures say the patriarchs slept with their fathers. In the New Testament, Christ tells the mourners of a dead child, "She is not dead, but asleep." And the Quran speaks of God taking souls at night and returning them upon waking, a rhythm of creation repeated every dawn. In the East, the metaphor deepened into philosophy. Hindu texts describe the self Atman as wandering during sleep, much as it does between lives. Dreams were glimpses of samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth. Buddhist masters compared enlightenment to awakening from the longest dream, a liberation from illusion. To die consciously was to awaken beyond the body, just as to dream consciously was to awaken within it. Even modern psychology retains the echo. Freud saw death imagery in dreams as the mind's attempt to reconcile impermanence. Jung saw it as transformation, the psyche renewing itself through symbolic death. In this sense, every nightmare of falling, drowning, or fading away may be a miniature death, followed by resurrection in the next dream. The human need to believe that sleep connects us to eternity endures. When we close our eyes, we surrender control, trusting the same silence that will one day claim us completely. Yet in that surrender lies comfort. Sleep teaches us that endings are not to be feared, that descent into darkness can also be renewal. Across cultures, funerary art often shows the dead reclining peacefully, heads resting upon stone pillows, faces serene. They do not struggle, they sleep. The message is timeless. The universe, too, must rest before it dreams again. Perhaps the soul is simply the dream that continues after waking. Chapter 10, Epilogue, the dream that never ends. The story of dreaming is, in the end, the story of being human. It threads through every age, from the first campfires to the hum of machines, from sacred temples to electric cities, unchanged in essence though the world transforms around it. Dreams have guided kings, comforted mourners, terrified sinners, and inspired creators. They have built empires and symphonies, myths and machines. And even now, in a century that can map the cosmos and read the genome, we still close our eyes each night and step into mystery. What happens when we sleep is both ordinary and miraculous. The body slows, the mind drifts, yet in that quiet drift, universes unfold. Our memories become landscapes. Our emotions become characters. We rehearse our fears, rediscover our joys, and weave fragments of ourselves into stories that vanish at dawn. Science may measure the waves and frequencies, but meaning still slips through like water through fingers. Dreams remind us that there are still places reason cannot reach, and that not everything must be solved to be sacred. Perhaps that is why, even in our sleepless modern age, people still seek the storyteller's voice at night. The old instinct endures, to lie down, to listen, to let words carry us toward the border of sleep. It is the same impulse that moved our ancestors around the fire, to make sense of the darkness through story. And maybe that is what dreams are. The mind telling itself stories when no one else can. Someday, humanity may leave Earth. We may sleep among the stars, guided by artificial suns and silent machines. But even then we will dream of home, of oceans, of the first dawn. For dreaming is not tied to place or era. It is the heartbeat of consciousness itself. As you drift now toward your own dreams, remember, you are continuing a lineage older than time. The dream of humanity does not end with waking. It flows on, from mind to mind, from night to night, an endless river of imagination. The dreaming mind never sleeps. It only changes shape. So rest now, let the world fade, and the next story begin. Somewhere within that quiet darkness, history is still dreaming. Part 3, The Language of Dreams. Every night, as words fade from waking thought, the mind begins to speak another language. It has no alphabet, no grammar, no sound, only images, sensations, and impossible events that somehow make sense in the dark. This is the language of dreams. It is older than speech, and more universal than any empire's tongue. Children who share no words can understand one another's dreams. Civilizations separated by oceans have painted the same visions: flight, pursuit, falling, light. For millennia, humanity has tried to translate this inner language, carving it into tablets, writing manuals, asking prophets and psychologists to decode its grammar. And yet the dream still resists translation. It tells truths that reason cannot hold, truths that must be felt rather than said. Tonight, we listen to that language, its symbols, its evolution, and what it reveals about us. From Babylon to the digital age, from divine omens to neural codes, we will trace how humans have tried to read what the soul writes when the mouth is silent. Chapter 1. The First Dream Dictionaries. Our story begins not in a library, but in a temple, 4,000 years ago, under the crescent moons of Mesopotamia. Here, dreams were archives of divine speech. The Babylonians recorded them on clay tablets baked in sun and fire, forming the earliest dream dictionaries known to history. One such tablet, preserved in the ruins of Nineveh, begins with the line, "If a man dreams of drinking clear water, joy shall come. If he dreams of being struck by lightning, he will receive the favor of the gods." Each image had a corresponding event, a fixed equivalence between symbol and fate. Dreaming was not introspection. It was divination. Egypt followed the same path. In a papyrus from around 1275 BCE, dreams are listed alongside their interpretations. If a man dreams he sees himself dead, good. It means long life. If he dreams of eating crocodile flesh, good. It means he shall become a powerful official. The Egyptians kept these lists beside their temples of sleep, where the faithful came to practice incubation, lying down on consecrated stone, waiting for divine messages. In Greece, this evolved into an almost scientific art. Artemidorus of Daldis, in the 2nd century CE, compiled Oneirocritica, a vast manual of dream meanings drawn from sailors, soldiers, and lovers. He divided dreams into two types: theorematic dreams, literal prophecies; allegorical dreams, symbolic reflections of the dreamer's life. A merchant dreaming of storms might face market trouble. A pregnant woman dreaming of vines foretold abundance. For Artemidorus, the dream was a mirror, but one that spoke in riddles. Across Asia, similar grammars emerged. In China, Zhou Gongji Meng, the Duke of Zhou's explanation of dreams, became a household text. It linked every image to fortune or misfortune: dragons for honor, bridges for transition, teeth falling for family strife. In India, the Swapna Shastra described dreams as karmic echoes, each scene hinting at virtue or sin carried from another life. The pattern every culture built a dictionary for the dream. Every age believed the dream had rules, and yet, behind all these rules, there was one truth. No list ever truly translated the heart. Even as tablets and papyri tried to capture the syntax of sleep, the meaning kept shifting, alive and personal. The language of dreams could be written down, but never contained. Chapter 2. The Sacred Grammar of Symbols. If ancient dream books were vocabularies, religion was their grammar. Faith gave structure to dream imagery, turning private visions into universal stories. In the Abrahamic traditions, dreams became part of revelation itself. Joseph's sheaves of wheat bowing before his brothers, Daniel's beasts rising from the sea. These were metaphors so powerful that they reshaped history. Their imagery was not random. It followed a symbolic logic shared across cultures: food for sustenance, animals for instinct, ascent for salvation, descent for trial. Islam continued this sacred grammar with extraordinary subtlety. The 9th century scholar Ibn Sirin wrote The Interpretation of Dreams, in which thousands of symbols were organized by morality. To dream of light was knowledge, of darkness, ignorance, of a crown, responsibility. For him, every symbol carried ethical weight. Dreams were not fortune-telling, They were moral reflections. In medieval Europe, Christian mystics adopted this grammar, but layered it with guilt and redemption. A dream of falling was the fall from grace. Water meant baptism or temptation. Writers like Hildegard of Bingen recorded visions that combined theology and art, geometric mandalas of divine order, seen behind closed eyes. Far from the cathedrals, similar patterns unfolded in Asia. Buddhist monks saw dreams of lotus flowers, symbols of awakening rising from muddy water. In Japan, samurai considered dreams of swords both omen and meditation, while poets of the Heian court described moonlit dreams as gateways to memory and longing. Across Africa, among the Yoruba and Akan peoples, symbols of journeys, rivers, and ancestors mirrored cosmologies of passage and return, the soul's movement through worlds. To study these parallels is to realize that humanity dreams in metaphor. Across geography, the same images recur: water, flight, darkness, pursuit, rebirth. Each carries emotional gravity, archetypes that unite cultures without communication. Modern psychologists would later give these recurring patterns a name: the archetypes of the collective unconscious, but the ancients already knew their power. They understood that symbols are the mind's natural language. Just as the heart beats without words, the psyche speaks in images. When we dream, we are not inventing, we are remembering, repeating the ancient sentences written into the human condition. Chapter 3: The Dream Interpreters, from Freud to Jung. By the end of the 19th century, dream interpretation left the temples and entered the laboratory. What had once been a conversation with the gods became a dialogue with the mind itself. In 1900, Sigmund Freud published The Interpretation of Dreams, a book that would forever change how humans understood the night. For Freud, dreams were not prophecy but psychic confession. He called them the royal road to the unconscious, disguised expressions of thoughts and desires that the waking self dared not admit. The ancient dream books had promised a dictionary. Freud gave us grammar. Each symbol became a cipher of wish, fear, or memory. A locked door was repression. A journey was longing. A fall was failure. Beneath the strangeness of images lay an inner logic he called dream work. Processes like condensation, displacement, and symbolism that translated raw emotion into picture. Freud's ideas scandalized polite society and fascinated artists. For the first time, one could analyze not the omen, but the self. The dreamer became both prophet and subject. Yet Freud's system, precise and personal, could not hold the full range of human imagination. His student Carl Gustav Jung looked deeper. Where Freud saw repression, Jung saw revelation. He believed dreams were not distortions but messages from the self, the total psyche seeking balance. Jung introduced a vocabulary that re-enchanted science, archetype, shadow, anima, collective unconscious. He noticed that people who had never met dreamed in the same myths: heroes, mothers, floods, serpents. The dream, he said, spoke the oldest language on earth, symbol. For Jung, nightmares were not pathology but pilgrimage. To confront the shadow in dream was to reclaim one's lost wholeness. He encouraged active imagination, meeting dream figures consciously, letting them speak. Between Freud's microscope and Jung's myth, modern psychology found its dual heritage: analysis and meaning, mechanism and mystery. Every dream could now be read two ways: scientifically as neuron and biologically as story. By the mid-20th century, laboratories wired sleepers to electrodes, tracing the pulses of REM, while poets still quoted Jung and Freud to explain their visions. The temple and the clinic had finally merged. Chapter 4: the modern symbols, falling, flying, and digital dreams. Even as technology surrounded the world with artificial light, the inner theater of symbols remained alive. The language of dreams did not vanish. It simply updated its vocabulary. Across cultures, certain motifs endure like universal grammar. Falling, the oldest and most common of dreams. Psychologists link it to loss of control, but beneath the data lives an ancient truth, the body rehearsing surrender, the soul remembering gravity. Flying, liberation, ambition, transcendence, the dream of escaping weight itself. From Icarus to astronauts, it carries the same longing, to rise above the known. Falling, anxiety made tactile. The symbol appears in Babylonian tablets and modern diaries alike. A fear of power lost, voice broken, self-exposed. Being chased, the primitive brain replaying survival, yet also the conscience fleeing what it denies. Birth, cleansing, oblivion, its meaning shifting with depth. Calm seas promise renewal, floods, transformation. These images travel through time like migrating birds, nesting in every century's imagination. But the modern world has birthed new symbols. Dreamers now report phones that won't dial, emails that vanish, screens that glow without response. Technology has become part of our mythic vocabulary, the mirror where identity flickers. In the digital age, anxiety wears the shape of signal loss. The settings have changed, yet emotion stays the same. A phone that will not connect is the old dream of a prayer unheard. A frozen screen is the eternal paralysis of the nightmare. The subconscious updates its metaphors as faithfully as software updates its code. Researchers studying thousands of dream journals online find that modern people still dream of the elemental, water, flight, pursuit, but framed by urban light and machine sound. The city has replaced the forest, but the symbols keep their roots. Some futurists wonder whether artificial intelligence might soon dream. Neural networks already hallucinate images when trained on vast datasets, digital echoes of our own REM visions. When machines begin to mimic imagination, they too join the grammar of dreams. Humanity has taught its reflection to speak in metaphor, and yet, beneath every new icon, the same pulse remains, emotion translated into image. The dream, ancient and infinite, continues to speak through whatever language the age provides. Fire, ink, film, or pixel. Chapter 5. The silence between words. Why dreams resist translation. For thousands of years, we have tried to translate dreams into prophecy, psychology, poetry. We have built dictionaries and algorithms, searched for formulas to decode the mind, and yet the dream still slips away. Its meaning changes the moment we describe it. The image that felt enormous in sleep shrinks when spoken aloud. The emotions that flooded us in the night dry into simple sentences by morning. Dreams lose their power not because they are fragile, but because they are beyond the reach of language. When we speak, we separate the world into subjects and verbs, causes and effects. But dreams are not built that way. They are simultaneous, multiple meanings at once, contradictions aloud. A single gesture can be grief and laughter, a single landscape both birth and death. They belong to the logic of metaphor, not the logic of grammar. Even the greatest interpreters have felt this frustration. Freud confessed that no analysis could ever capture the full texture of a dream. Jung warned that each symbol lives only in its dreamer, that archetypes are universal, but their expression is personal. And modern neuroscientists, mapping REM waves and synaptic firings, still find themselves standing at the threshold of mystery. They can measure the rhythm of thought, but not its poetry. Perhaps translation fails because dreams do not speak to us. They speak as us. The language of dreams is the self talking to itself in imagery so dense that words become unnecessary. To interpret a dream, then, is like trying to describe a song without sound. You can outline its notes, but never its feeling. Maybe that is why the world keeps dreaming, because in dreams, the mind escapes the cage of speech. It becomes pure experience, emotion without explanation, story without storyteller. When we wake, we reach for that vanished world with words, and the silence between them is what remains of the dream. Chapter 6. Epilogue. The Dreamer's Tongue. Every language we know was born from the same urge: to make the invisible visible, to give form to thought. But before there were words, there were dreams. They were the first language of the mind: image, color, motion, feeling, a grammar written in light and memory. From the priests of Mesopotamia to the psychologists of the modern age, from sacred visions to neural sparks, we have chased that language across centuries, trying to decipher it. And yet the miracle is not in what we have learned, but in what remains untranslatable. Each dream, no matter how strange, carries a small truth: that there is a part of us which continues to create when the rest of us sleep, a part that never tires, never stops weaving stories from the fragments of our days. That silent storyteller has no nationality, no religion. It is the same in the shepherd who dreamed under the stars 4,000 years ago, as in the city dweller falling asleep before a glowing screen tonight. It is the one voice we all share, the dreamer's tongue. So when words fail, when the world feels too loud or too divided, remember, every night, humanity returns to a common place, the borderland where language dissolves and imagination begins again. In that space, we are all poets. We are all children. We are all still learning to speak the first and oldest language of the soul. And that is why the dream never ends. It simply waits, for darkness, for silence, for the moment when thought becomes story once more. The lights dim, the world fades, and somewhere deep inside, the mind begins to whisper again. It does not need translation. You already know what it means. Part 4. How the World Sleeps Today. Every evening, across every time zone, the planet exhales. As the sun dips over the horizon, billions surrender to a ritual older than cities: rest. Yet the shape of that rest, how we prepare for it, the space we do it in, is wildly varied, shaped by culture, climate, economy, and technology. In Northern Europe, layered quilts and subdued lighting hug long winter nights. In West Africa, breezy porches know mosquito nets and loud laughter fade only when heat gives way. In Japan, the salaryman nods off on the subway, a brief sleep in transit part of the day's rhythm. Each of these nights, different in scenery and sound, shares the same gesture: the body lying down, the brain unwinding. But what happens when we look not at sleep itself, but at how we build for it? The beds, the structures, the schedules, the rituals. These are the architecture of night. The way a culture sleeps tells you how that society lives. From the capsule hotels of Tokyo to the yurts of Mongolia, the physical and cultural design of rest reveals deep truths. In this film, we will explore how the world sleeps today, not in myths of the past, but in lives unfolding right now. We will visit homes, apartments, tents, city corners, dunes, and polar camps. We will talk with workers, nomads, scientists, city dwellers, guided by one idea: the night is not just darkness that falls, but a world that is built, a design of stillness in motion. We begin with the shape of rest, the spaces we inhabit when we cease to work. Chapter 1: The shape of rest, beds, spaces, and shelter across cultures. Where we sleep reveals as much as what we sleep. The architecture of rest is both physical and cultural. The bed, the tent, the hammock, the pod hotel. It is a mirror of geography, climate, class, and belief. In Japan, sleep is often confined to small, high-density spaces. An average Tokyo apartment may be little more than 50 square meters, shared by a family and their phones, screens, shoes at the door. Yet the salaryman still seeks the inamori, the ability to nap briefly, anywhere. A recent survey found nearly half of Japanese people in their 50s report getting less than 6 hours sleep nightly. Data from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) puts Japan's average sleep duration at approximately 7 hours and 22 minutes, the shortest in its 33-member list. In contrast, many parts of the world still maintain more expansive sleeping environments. Among Mongolian nomads, the yurt jur is both home and sleep zone. At night, people gather their livestock, close the felt flaps, light a small stove at the center, and sleep beneath the circular dome. Outside, the cold wind may howl. Inside, the dome is quiet and communal. The bed is often the packed felt mats themselves, no separate bedroom. Sleep is embedded in the architecture of seasonal migration and communal life. In Spain and the Mediterranean region, older homes may contain terrazza balconies and thick shutters. At midday, the heat forces rest. At night, the architecture cools slowly. While siesta culture is declining in many places, the structure of the home is still built to accommodate a longer rest period. On cooler nights, the bed may be beneath windows that open to the street sounds of life, children playing, dogs barking, yet the design accommodates quiet. In Arctic and subarctic regions, the challenge is entirely different. Sunless winters and midnight sun summers distort the rhythm of day and night. In a research study of global sleep habits across 63 countries, the average self-reported sleep duration was 7.01 hours SD, equal to 1.07 hours. But the variation correlated significantly with latitude. Indigenous communities in Greenland or northern Canada often sleep in heated cabins insulated from outside glare, yet still report disrupted cycles during the polar night. The architecture here, thick walls, thermal mass, light-blocking curtains, becomes essential. In cities, the design is changing again. In Tokyo and Seoul and Singapore, the rise of capsule hotels is emblematic. Sleep is commodified into a small pod, 8 feet by 4 feet, offering privacy and darkness in a facility located above the railway tracks. It is an architecture born of maximizing rest where space is minimal. The design admits you will be awake during the day, commuting, working long hours and sleeping efficiently at night, or perhaps napping in transit during the day. Consider the mattress. In hot climates like Lagos or Lagos-adjacent communities, sleeping may happen on mats, nights on rooftops, fans or open windows providing the only comfort. According to a YouGov global survey of 17 international markets, less than half of residents in some countries enjoy 7 or more hours of sleep. Indonesia 48%, Singapore 44%. When cooling infrastructure is poor, people may use hammocks slung between trees, enjoying cross breezes rather than air conditioning. In affluent Western homes, The bedroom has become a specialized zone again, separate from TV and dining, quiet and light-controlled. However, even in the best-built environment, survey data show adults average fewer than 7 hours of sleep a night. The Philips Global Pursuit of Better Sleep Health report found that on average, weekday sleep duration for adults globally was 6.8 hours, rising to 7.5% on weekends. The bed is no longer just a physical object. It is a design statement, a retreat, a microarchitecture of light, noise, even temperature. The phenomenon of sleep hygiene, mattress quality, blackout curtains, white noise machines, shows how modern architecture now treats sleep as commodity. The result, sleeping habits are both traditional and modern, in many cases hybrid. A family in Lagos may still sleep on woven mats, but in a building with fans, internet, and 24-hour power. A worker in New York may sleep 8 hours in a large suburban home, but wake up once to check their phone. The architecture of rest today is one of choice and constraint at once. What does this tell us about our world? It tells us that rest is no longer purely biological. It is geological. Latitude matters. Economic space, insulation, air conditioning matter, social commute length. Work hours matter, and cultural nap rituals, communal sleeping, pod hotels matter. When societies change an economy or work pattern, their rest space mutates too. As you settle into whichever space you lie down in next, notice how the bed sits, how the window opens, how the night enters. The architecture of rest is a quiet story of how we negotiate the darkness. Chapter 2. Rituals of Sleep, How Different Societies Prepare for Night. Before we sleep, we perform small ceremonies. We close windows, lower lights, check locks, pray, scroll, wash our faces. They may seem ordinary, but in truth, these gestures are fragments of ancient ritual, habits passed from the hearths of our ancestors into the modern bedroom. Every culture builds its own threshold between waking and sleep. In Japan, the act of namuri junbi, preparing the body for rest, is quiet and deliberate. Futons are unrolled on tatami mats only when the day is finished, the room is aired, the bedding beaten softly to release dust. This daily transformation of space from living room to sleeping room turns rest into renewal. The ritual says, today is complete. Across India and parts of Southeast Asia, sleep preparation remains communal. In villages, families gather outside during twilight. Conversation and meals merge into the rhythm of nightfall. As stars appear, people retreat indoors, often to the same large mat. Oil lamps or dim electric bulbs replace the fire's glow. The transition is slow, collective, unhurried, a social choreography around darkness. In contrast, the Western world's nighttime routine has become a private act. Industrial life divided work and rest into separate rooms, separate hours. Yet even here, echoes of ancient ritual remain. A bath before bed, reading by low light, the instinct to dim screens and lower voices. Sleep hygiene manuals and digital wellness programs now formalize what intuition once knew, that winding down is ceremony. In Islamic culture, night prayer Isha frames the spiritual rhythm of sleep. Believers often recite protective verses before closing their eyes. In households from Cairo to Jakarta, the act of lying down still carries intention. A short supplication, right hand beneath the cheek, mirroring the Prophet's practice. Faith defines how the body meets darkness. The Yoruba of West Africa, too, associate night with the spirit realm. Dreams are not mere imagination, but communication with ancestors. Sleep rituals often include light physical cleansing, washing the feet, anointing the body with oil, to prevent unwanted spiritual visits. Elders sometimes encourage recounting dreams upon waking, reaffirming the bond between body, soul, and lineage. Among the Hadza and San peoples of East and Southern Africa, bedtime carries no rigid schedule. The community's fire burns until the last ember dies. People drift into sleep in stages, some lying down early, others talking, watching stars. Their ritual is trust, the understanding that someone always remains awake, guarding. The night becomes collective rather than private, woven through vigilance and closeness. In the Andes, the Quechua people once believed sleep connected the individual to the Pacha, the cosmic order of space and time. Before resting, they whispered gratitude to the mountains and sky. The practice survives today as quiet reflection, closing the day with awareness of the natural world. Science now confirms what tradition long sensed: ritualized transitions reduce stress hormones and slow heart rate. Whether one prays, meditates, or follows a precise skincare routine, the effect is similar, signaling to the brain that vigilance may rest. Yet modern life complicates these rituals. The glow of screens extends daylight, messages arrive across time zones, work follows us into bed. In 2022, researchers found that more than half of adults in industrialized countries report using electronic devices within 5 minutes of sleep, a pattern directly correlated with delayed melatonin production. The modern ritual of night is no longer silence but simulation. Still, beneath the noise, the ancient impulse persists. Humans instinctively create boundaries between effort and surrender. Even when the ceremony is as small as turning off a light, the gesture carries meaning. Across the world, the hour before sleep remains one of the last shared human languages, a quiet translation of need into habit. Chapter 3: Time and Rhythm, Segmented, Siesta, and Polyphasic Patterns. How long we sleep, and when, is not universal. It is as culturally shaped as cuisine. The modern 8-hour block, often assumed to be normal, is a historical invention, the product of clocks, factories, and electricity. In pre-industrial Europe, people practiced segmented sleep. Diaries, letters, and legal documents from the 15th to 18th centuries describe a first sleep, beginning soon after dusk, and a second sleep before dawn. Between them was a waking interval, 1 or 2 hours for prayer, conversation, or quiet intimacy. The English called it the watch. Sleep was cyclical, not continuous. The night was social. When artificial lighting spread in the 19th century, this rhythm collapsed. Workers stayed up later, mornings began earlier. The Industrial Revolution compressed rest into one solid block. The phrase, "a good night's sleep," became both medical advice and moral standard. Efficiency replaced rhythm. Elsewhere, other traditions survived. In Spain, Italy, and parts of Latin America, the siesta maintained the division of day. Heat dictated behavior. Afternoon work paused. Meals grew long, rest followed. Studies in southern Europe show that even as formal siesta hours decline, many still nap at midday. In 2023, a Spanish health survey reported that over 35% of adults nap regularly, preserving an ancient adaptation to climate. In Japan, where work culture often erases boundaries, a different adaptation evolved: polyphasic sleep, multiple brief rests spread across day and night. The practice of inamori, being present while sleeping, allows naps during meetings, commutes, or classes. Though often seen as fatigue, it reflects cultural permission for short restoration rather than long withdrawal. In Nigeria, Ghana, and other equatorial societies, researchers found that urban workers increasingly follow monophasic patterns, but rural populations still nap or rest twice daily, often aligning with power cuts or heat cycles. Where electricity is unreliable, sleep still follows nature's light. In Arctic and Antarctic communities, circadian rhythms break down altogether. During months of midnight sun or continuous darkness, residents rely on social cues instead of sunlight. In Svalbard, Norway, and northern Canada, schools and workplaces anchor schedules artificially. Otherwise, the body's internal clock drifts. Sleep scientists studying these regions note increased insomnia, fatigue, and seasonal affective symptoms, proof that natural light remains the planet's true metronome. Meanwhile, modern science reveals that human sleep patterns are remarkably flexible. Anthropologist Jerome Siegel's comparative studies of hunter-gatherer groups in Tanzania, Namibia, and Bolivia show average sleep duration near 7 hours, identical to modern averages. The difference lies in timing. Pre-industrial communities sleep later and wake with sunrise, without artificial constraints. They nap rarely, but experience more gradual transitions between states of wake and rest. Today, sleep deprivation has become both a badge and an epidemic. In global health reports, nearly 1/3 of adults describe themselves as chronically tired. The World Health Organization recognizes insufficient sleep as a public health concern, linking it to obesity, depression, and cardiovascular disease. Yet even amid this crisis, cultural rhythms persist. Mediterranean countries still nap. East Asia still dozes in public. Northern Europe still values early nights. And the United States still idolizes productivity over rest. Time itself has become contested territory. We are a species at odds with its own clock. Still, the body remembers. Even the most urban worker who collapses after midnight and wakes at dawn carries traces of older rhythms, the pause between sleeps, the instinct to rest after heat, the pull toward darkness when light fades. If you could listen closely to the planet at night, you would hear not silence, but overlapping cadences, siestas folding into vigils, snores mixing with midnight chatter, thousands of clocks ticking against the pulse of the sun. The rhythm of human sleep, fragmented yet enduring, is a music older than civilization, and in every beat of that hidden symphony lies the same refrain, the body asking the world for permission to rest. Chapter 4: The Sleepless City, Urban Light and Industrial Fatigue. Every city glows like a constellation, a new kind of star map. But the light that once guided sailors now blinds the sky. In the modern world, darkness has become a luxury. At the beginning of the 20th century, night still belonged to silence. Gas lamps flickered along cobblestone streets. Homes fell quiet after supper. Workers retired early because fuel was expensive. Then electricity arrived, and with it, the conquest of the night. Urbanization changed not just how we live, but how we sleep. The Industrial Revolution replaced seasonal rhythms with factory shifts. The hum of machines dictated when the body should rest. By 1920, London and New York were brightly lit past midnight. Sleep became negotiable. The world's first 24-hour cities were born. Today, insomnia has become an urban condition. In Tokyo, Seoul, and Hong Kong, surveys show less than half the population sleeps the recommended 7 hours per night. In the United States, nearly 1 in 3 adults reports chronic short sleep. The reasons differ: long commutes, shift work, nightlife, digital distraction, but the outcome is the same: a planet that refuses to turn off. Cities never sleep because we have wired them not to. Electric grids pulse through concrete veins. Office towers stay illuminated to display prosperity. The economy rewards wakefulness, productivity equated with virtue. Sleep, once a communal necessity, is now a private rebellion. Walk through any metropolis after midnight, and you see the new ecology of exhaustion. Delivery riders nap against storefronts, phones in hand. Nurses exit hospitals into fluorescent dawn. Neon signage flickers above empty sidewalks, advertising coffee or energy drinks, symbols of resistance against fatigue. These are not anomalies, they are the architecture of sleeplessness. Bus parks hum with vendors and travelers well past midnight, a rhythm driven by necessity rather than choice. The informal economy thrives on extended hours. A night spent working means a morning spent earning. In New York, Wall Street traders wake before sunrise to match London's opening bell. In Manila and Mumbai, outsourced call centers align their clocks with clients on the other side of the world. The global city is no longer bound by night or day. It runs on the logic of perpetual light. But the cost is visible. Urban sleep deprivation now mirrors pollution, unseen but pervasive. Studies show that exposure to artificial light at night suppresses melatonin, disrupting circadian cycles and immune response. Apartment windows glow like screens, blue light leaks through curtains. The very infrastructure that keeps cities alive also keeps them awake. Architects and scientists are beginning to push back. Dark design, the deliberate creation of spaces that honor circadian rhythm, is gaining traction. Some cities now regulate light pollution. Hotels offer circadian lighting that dims automatically. Hospitals adjust ward illumination to simulate natural dusk. Even urban planners speak of sleep-sensitive cities, environments that allow rest within motion. Still, for most city dwellers, the boundary between work and sleep continues to blur. In the digital economy, night is not rest but connectivity. Phones vibrate with messages from other time zones. Social media pulses endlessly. Entertainment streams replace dreams. The city that never sleeps has moved inside our hands. Yet beneath the noise, some seek restoration. Night markets, night buses, late cafes, all carry their own serenity. A barista wiping counters at 3 a.m., a taxi driver parked beneath dim streetlights, a student studying in silence. They are the quiet pulse within the sleepless city. They prove that even in places where rest is scarce, the human longing for peace persists. When viewed from space, the Earth's cities glitter in patterns almost biological, like neurons in a brain still firing long after it should have slept. The planet itself looks awake. But perhaps it is not insomnia we are seeing. Perhaps it is humanity's dream, still trying to remember darkness. Science and health, global sleep crises and cultural adaptations. If the first 3 industrial revolutions mechanized work, the 4th has mechanized rest. In the 21st century, the science of sleep has become both salvation and industry. Every nation is measuring its fatigue. The World Health Organization classifies insufficient sleep as a global health epidemic. Chronic deprivation affects more than 1/3 of adults worldwide, linked to increased rates of depression, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. The global economy loses hundreds of billions annually to fatigue-related inefficiency, an invisible drain caused not by lack of skill, but by lack of rest. But the crisis is uneven. In Japan, long working hours and cultural pressure produce one of the lowest average sleep durations on Earth. Researchers at the University of Tokyo report an average of just over 7 hours per night, often fragmented by commuting naps and overtime. In South Korea, intense academic and corporate expectations yield similar numbers. 1 in 5 adults regularly sleeps less than 6 hours. In contrast, France and New Zealand top global sleep averages, with citizens exceeding 8 hours nightly, protected by labor laws and cultural attitudes that still value leisure. Northern European countries like Norway, Denmark, and Finland also score high on sleep quality indexes, aided by social policies emphasizing work-life balance and environmental design. Geography, economics, and social norms shape how the body finds rest. In the United States, the poorest populations sleep least. Neighborhoods with higher noise, light pollution, and irregular work schedules show dramatically shorter rest cycles. The divide between those who can afford silence and those who cannot has become a new metric of inequality. In many African megacities, Lagos, Nairobi, Johannesburg, long commutes and unreliable electricity push bedtimes later, forcing adaptive flexibility. Residents nap in taxis, sleep in shorter bursts, and learn to function amid noise. Adaptation, not uniformity, defines survival. Even the biochemistry of modern sleep is under stress. Exposure to artificial light delays melatonin release. The body interprets the glow of screens as daytime. Global studies indicate that in urban centers, average melatonin onset has shifted by almost an hour compared to rural communities. This subtle drift translates to chronic social jet lag, a mismatch between internal rhythm and external schedule. Yet the story is not all decline. Science is also rediscovering how culture can heal the night. In Spain, afternoon naps are correlated with improved cardiovascular health when kept under 30 minutes. In China, the tradition of the wujiao, a brief post-lunch nap, has proven beneficial in lowering blood pressure and improving cognition. In Nordic countries, open-air napping for infants, letting babies sleep outdoors in cold air, continues to show strong immune benefits. What may seem quaint is in fact evidence that sleep diversity, not uniformity, strengthens adaptation. Technology, paradoxically, has begun to offer remedies. Smart devices track sleep cycles, suggesting optimal bedtimes and wake phases. Blue light filters, circadian lamps, and temperature-regulating mattresses mimic natural cues long erased by electricity. Yet reliance on these tools reflects a paradox. We are building machines to restore what machines disturbed. Scientists are also exploring chronobiology, the study of aligning daily activities with biological time. Workplaces that synchronize schedules to daylight, rather than fixed clocks, report higher productivity and fewer errors. Some hospitals and factories are experimenting with circadian shifts, rotating work hours to reduce fatigue. The lesson is ancient. Health depends on rhythm, not duration alone. Culturally, a quiet revolution is underway. The global wellness movement, meditation apps, sleep retreats, digital detox programs, may seem modern, but they echo millennia-old practices of evening stillness. Cities like Copenhagen and Melbourne now hold community sleep-ins to raise awareness of rest as public health. Governments in Finland, Japan, and Singapore fund national campaigns teaching sleep hygiene alongside diet and exercise. Still, statistics reveal a sobering truth. Despite awareness, people are sleeping less each decade. Economic pressure, connectivity, and climate stress all erode rest. In hotter countries, rising nighttime temperatures reduce sleep by measurable minutes per degree, a new environmental frontier of exhaustion. And yet, amid the crisis, resilience grows. Humans have always adapted to scarcity of food, water, or time, and sleep is no different. Where darkness is stolen by neon, we learn to nap in light. Where silence is gone, we teach ourselves to rest within noise. Perhaps the future of sleep will not be a return to the past, but an evolution, a mosaic of micro-rests and cultural wisdom, guided by both data and instinct. Science measures our fatigue. Culture teaches us what to do with it. Chapter 6. The Return to Darkness, Rediscovering the Night in a 24-hour world. For more than a century, humanity has treated darkness as something to be conquered. We filled it with lamps, wires, screens, and glass, turning night into an extension of the day. But the pendulum is slowly swinging back. All over the world, people are beginning to rediscover darkness, not as a void, but as medicine. In the 21st century, the scarcity of night has become a new kind of crisis. The global spread of artificial light has made the Milky Way invisible to nearly 80% of people. Astronomers call it sky glow, a haze of electricity that erases the stars. But for millions of urban residents, the problem is not astronomy, it is sleep. Exposure to nighttime light has been shown to disrupt circadian rhythm, suppress melatonin, and raise stress levels. In some cities, the night is never truly dark. Hotel curtains leak neon, street lights glare through fog, LED billboards blink like daybreak. Now, a counter-movement is forming. Architects, scientists, and artists working to reintroduce darkness as a vital resource. In Scandinavia, where winters bring endless night, designers have learned to balance illumination and shade rather than erase it. Buildings in Copenhagen and Oslo increasingly use warm spectrum lighting that mimics firelight rather than daylight, creating visual calm. Finland's Night of Silence initiative asks households to switch off outdoor lights for 1 hour each winter, a symbolic return to natural darkness. In the American Southwest, the International Dark Sky Association protects vast zones of true night. Parks in Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico now regulate light output, shielding fixtures downward so the stars remain visible. Tourists arrive not for nightlife, but for night sky, lying under constellations that city dwellers have forgotten exist. In Japan, the rise of sleep cafes and nap pods marks another kind of darkness revival, spaces designed for sensory rest. Customers pay by the hour to nap in controlled dimness, insulated from the chaos of Tokyo. Light levels, sound, and temperature are calibrated to simulate twilight. The night has been rebuilt, one pod at a time. Luxury resorts, too, are joining what marketers call the sleep tourism movement. Hotels in Switzerland, Bali, and Iceland now advertise circadian architecture. Suites positioned for sunrise and sunset, blackout systems that synchronize with natural light cycles, and menus of sleep cuisine rich in magnesium and tryptophan. For the first time, rest itself has become a travel destination. Even technology is learning to dim. Phone operating systems include night shift modes that reduce blue light. Smart home systems now shift color temperature automatically as the sun sets. These are small acts of reconciliation between biology and modernity, acknowledgments that we cannot thrive in perpetual glare. But rediscovering darkness is not only about architecture or gadgets, it is also cultural. Communities in rural Kenya and Tanzania still practice moonlight gatherings, evenings when electric lights are intentionally left off so families can share stories outdoors. The glow of fire replaces the screen, conversation replaces notifications. In France and Germany, municipal laws now require shops to extinguish illuminated signs after midnight. In many small towns, the return of true night has made neighbors visible again. One can finally see the stars over the rooftops. Artists have taken up the theme. In Seoul, installations use motion sensors to dim lights when no one is present, letting visitors walk through darkness like water. In New York, lights-out art events transform skyscrapers into silhouettes, reminding the city what its skyline looked like before Edison. Across the world, darkness is being curated. Science, too, is reevaluating what night does for the human mind. Studies at sleep laboratories show that even short exposure to natural darkness, 30 minutes with no screen or artificial light, lowers cortisol and heart rate. People report enhanced introspection and creativity after evenings spent in dim environments. The absence of light allows not just rest, but thought. In an age of abundance, darkness has become rare enough to be sacred again. The modern rediscovery of night is not nostalgia, it is adaptation. Humanity is learning that progress cannot be measured only in lumens. The real frontier is balance, the rediscovery of shadow as part of light. Epilogue. The shared silence. At last, the world turns. Lights fade in offices, markets close, engines still. From the Amazon to the Arctic, from skyscraper balconies to desert tents, billions of eyes grow heavy at once. For all our differences, language, wealth, belief, the act of sleep unites us. It is our last universal ritual, untouched by ideology or border. We close our eyes, surrender to the same darkness, and trust that morning will come. If you could listen to the planet from orbit, you would not hear one steady rhythm, but a wave. Pulses of rest moving across longitude, chasing the sun. Asia falls asleep as America wakes. Europe dreams while Australia drinks its coffee. The cycle never stops. Earth breathes in 24-hour tides of waking and sleeping. A heartbeat of blue, and beneath all of it lies silence. A shared, global hush that arrives when words and machines finally rest. In that hush, humanity remembers its oldest instinct, to stop, to recover, to dream. The architecture of night is not made only of walls and windows. It is made of trust. Trust that the world will still turn without our supervision. Trust that rest is not lost time, but living time in another form. A city bus driver leans his head against the window between routes. A farmer in Senegal stretches out beneath the open sky. A child in Sao Paulo pulls a blanket to her chin. A researcher at the South Pole zips her parka against the cold and closes her eyes under a sun that will not set. Different lights, same darkness. In that moment, the planet aligns, not politically or economically, but biologically, spiritually, quietly. The hum of humanity lowers to a murmur, and every breath joins an invisible choir of rest. So let the night return. Let it be unhurried, imperfect, vast. Because in the end, no matter how bright our cities, how fast our machines, or how intricate our designs, we all share one architecture, the need to lie down, to drift, and to dream. The world sleeps, and for a few hours it is at peace. The rest is silence. If you are sleeping already, sleep well. If you are listening, may the rest of your night be easy. Subscribe to History for Sleep, and let the next